when you have a team that is ready to win a Super Bowl, you have if you're lucky, you have a 3 to 4 year window to get that done.
What's up, everybody? Welcome. I'm Guy, and doing a little something different today because on Thursday night, I was texting my buddy here, Shane Vereen, who's a Super Bowl champion, and I was like, Shane, what does it take to win a Super Bowl, and do the 49ers have it? There's a picture of Shane winning the Super Bowl. And so as we were texting, I was like, Shane, we've got one more week left of the radio show we do on Sirius XM Pac-12 Radio. Why don't you venture into the YouTube world? And so here we are. So Shane, the question we're trying to answer today: what does it take to win the Super Bowl, and do the 49ers have it? What do you
You
think?
know, well, this is my first journey into the YouTube world, and it's kind of cool in here. You know what I mean? Like this is my YouTube cherry, if you will.
Yeah, well,
Um,
pop.
First question was, do the Niners have what it takes to win the Super Bowl? Correct.
Correct. That is the question.
The answer is yes. Yes, they do. Of course, they have what it takes to win the Super Bowl. They've had what it takes to win the Super Bowl for not just this season, but last season as well. They got playmakers, they have the defense, they have an offensive line, they have a great coach. And they have the pieces that it takes. I mean, anybody that turns on the game either and has seen the Niners play over the last 2 seasons, you're going to say they got it. Each year in the NFL, there's 4 to 5 teams that have legitimate chances to win the Super Bowl based off of the roster and the coach pairing. That's kind of how I look at the season prior to when it starts. And before this season started, I thought the Niners, the Eagles, the Ravens. Weirdly enough, even though I'm not a firm believer, the Cowboys, I thought they had what it takes to win the Super Bowl. And then the fifth choice was pretty much the Chiefs because it's Patrick Mahomes. And when you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, regardless of what the roster looks like around him, he's good enough to make everybody better. So coming into the season, those were my 5 teams that I thought that had a chance to win a Super Bowl based off of the roster, the talent, and the coach pairing. The Niners at the top of that list, and they've been at the top of my list for the entirety of this season, win, lose, or draw during the regular season. I still believe that they have everything that they need at their disposal in order to win the Super Bowl.
So what? I mean, I guess the question especially became strong after the Ravens game, which
Yeah.
was, did the Ravens expose something? Did the Patrick Queen has said that there are tells in Miami and in San Francisco's offense, but he can't share it yet because he might have to see those teams again. He might see both of them again. The good news for Baltimore, if they see Miami, it'll be in Baltimore. I don't think Miami. I thought Miami had to be the 1 seed if they wanted a chance to go to the Super Bowl, Shane.
Yeah.
But like that Ravens game,
Mhm.
should that scare the Niners? Should that change anything? Should Kyle Shanahan do anything differently based off of
It
that game?
Yeah, it that was the first loss, and granted they had 3 losses prior to that game, but those 3 losses, I was like, they played bad. They could have played better. If they see that team again, I bet you they'll beat them. The Ravens game, though, excuse me, for me was the one game where I was like, ooh, this would be a hard matchup if the Niners saw them again. Not that they couldn't beat them if they saw them in the Super Bowl, but the Ravens are a team that is built most equally in order to beat the Niners. The main reason why is because I've never seen the Niners in the last 2 seasons. I haven't seen the Niners been out physical, meaning their opposing team being more physical to them. I thought I saw that. I didn't think I saw that when the Niners played the Ravens. Um, Another thing was that it was in San Francisco. That matters to me. Being a former NFL player, that matters if you win on the road. But the way that the Ravens won, um, that kind of was the first kind of like little glimpse of like, ooh, there might be a team in the NFL that would be a tough out for the Niners. Um, it was the physicality. I don't think the Ravens did anything spectacular. They played better. I'm not saying the Niners didn't play their best game and lost. No, there was a bunch of turnovers, which isn't like the Niners. I thought the defense played well, but I don't know the last time they've seen a quarterback like Lamar Jackson. So there's some adjustments on the defensive side of the ball as well. And as far as what Patrick Queen said about the tells, the Miami's offense and the Niners offense are like this. they might call different plays week to week, but the basis and the foundation of both of these offenses is fairly similar. I mean, it makes sense. Mike McDaniel was under Kyle Shanahan or worked with Kyle Shanahan for a number of years.
I know it's hard to probably know exactly unless you're really studying the offense and knowing what the Ravens are talking about.
Yeah,
But what is it about those offenses that you think they've figured out? Because the thing I would say is with 4 interceptions,
yeah,
that game was 16-12 going into the fourth quarter.
yeah,
Sorry, that game was 33-12 going into the fourth quarter. But the Niners had like in the middle of that quarter a couple opportunities missed. Debo
yeah,
dropped the ball. Like they were losing that game. They were getting beat. The Ravens earned it. All that stuff. They had 11 pass plays of 10 air yards or more in that game, which is more than any other game. Brock hit a ton of big plays,
yeah,
even after he turned the ball over. The further I get away from that game, the more I feel okay about a Niners rematch. I would pick the Niners in a Super Bowl rematch with Baltimore because of how poorly they played and still how long they were able to hang around in that game.
yeah,
Lamar scares you. Their defense is legit. Like this is what a Super Bowl is.
yeah,
This is what you put the two best teams in a game. I think the pressure is on the Niners in the sense that, yeah, Lamar hasn't won a championship yet, but I think they'll feel pretty good as an organization if they take that step towards getting past the AFC, winning multiple playoff games and getting the AFC championship game, winning that and going to the Super Bowl. And he's got 2 MVPs. If you look at the recent list of coaches who have lost Super Bowls, by far and away, the one who is at the top of the list in terms of like is up there but hasn't won one is Kyle
yeah.
Sirianni. No one thinks Sirianni's a legend, like has a chance to be a 30-year head coach.
Right.
We'll see with Zach Taylor.
Hmm.
You guys beat Pete Carroll.
Yeah,
Pete's won one, so Pete's on the list of guys that have won one. Dan Quinn was there with Kyle. He's not a
yeah,
head coach right now. Kyle in the recent history is by far I think the best coach who hasn't won a championship but
yeah.
competes for championships. And so I just think there's a lot of pressure on them. And
Hmm.
there's a lot on him. If the Ravens kind of say we've got him figured out and then they beat him after they say it, yeah, it doesn't change anything in terms of like job security. I'm not talking about any of that stuff, but it'd be, I think a rematch for Kyle would be, I mean, it would obviously be the biggest game of his career. I don't think there's
Yeah.
you can't even debate that at this point.
No, not at all. It's interesting because I feel like there's similar motivation if we're specifically talking about the Niners and the Ravens. Lamar hasn't won one. A lot of the players, I don't know if nobody on the Ravens has won one outside of John Harbaugh. So yes, Lamar has the NFL.
Odell got one
Yeah, that's
with the
right, with the
Rams.
Rams. But Lamar hasn't got one. He's got the NFL MVP, and for him as a specific player to reach that next level, the only box he needs to check off is a Super Bowl win. On the flip side, the Niners, the only box that Kyle Shanahan needs to check off is a Super Bowl win. There's a lot of similarities in motivation from both teams in terms of winning it all. Um, so I look at it as both teams are very evenly matched. Defenses are both in the top of the league. Um, both of them run the ball extremely well. Both of them have a core group of receivers that is a nightmare for defenses. So it's almost like I'm not saying they're looking in the mirror at each other, but it's oddly similar. The motivational piece and the roster and talent piece. The interesting thing is about NFL, right? It's the way that the league is constructed with salary caps, with the draft, just the way it's constructed to be competitive each and every year, which isn't like any other professional sports league. So I say that to say this: each team, when you have a team that is ready to win a Super Bowl, you have a three. If you're lucky, you have a 3 to 4 year window to get that done before contracts, before salary cap, before guys taking more money elsewhere, before all of that kind of comes into play. You have that window. With the Niners, it's going to be Brock Purdy and Brandon Ayuk. Has Ayuk resigned yet? His
No,
second. So it's going to be
this
that.
year,
This year, yeah. So
maybe.
So if they're able to retain Ayuk, then that extends it maybe another 3 years, right? But or maybe another 2 years. But you have a window of opportunity, and guys know that in the league, and they understand. Hey, wait, we can't keep this core group together for much longer. We have to do it now. There has to be a sense of urgency, knowing that because it's a business at the end of the day. I see the Ravens are entering that window. I see the Niners are in the middle of that window and trying to hold on. I think that's why you go and get Chase Young in the middle of the season. I think that's why 2 years ago or last season you go and get Christian McCaffrey, because they realize that they're in that window and they're just a couple pieces away from completing the ultimate goal.
McCaffrey James White broke your record for most catches in a Super Bowl by a running back.
Yeah.
He actually set the record for most catches in a Super Bowl, period. You have 11, which is third in Super Bowl history. He has 14. You're tied with Jerry Rice.
Hey,
Hey,
Jerry's
son is on the way. But will Christian McCaffrey, if they get to the Super Bowl, you think have double-digit catches against the Baltimore Ravens?
I don't think so, only because he's so effective running the football.
Yeah.
They're going to try and get. Will he have over 15 touches in the game? Absolutely.
25.
25 most likely.
If they're playing from ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's going to that's going to change a lot. I think even if they're playing from behind, if they're playing from behind, he'll have more catches. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because that's just how they're going to utilize him. But I don't even know where I was going with my point now.
Well, it wasn't a very good question.
Okay.
I did want to ask you. You said coach quarterback combos. NFC, who could keep the Niners from going to the Super Bowl? I think the best coach quarterback combo is Stafford and McVay.
Ooh, yeah.
So, who do you view as the biggest threat to the Niners to go to? Dallas is the two right now. Dallas, Detroit, Tampa, Philly, the Rams, and then the Packers.
Yeah, the Packers. If I'm being honest, I don't think there's a team in the NFC that can beat the Niners.
You don't think Dallas can beat the Niners? I mean, they haven't.
They haven't. I don't think the Cowboys are physical enough.
What's wrong with Detroit?
Detroit hasn't been there in a long time. You have to be there. You have to experience it. You have to go through it. You have to learn how to win at that stage. In order for me to be a true believer in you. I understand that there have been teams that maybe haven't been there in a while and they made it all the way to the Super Bowl. I understand that that's happened. You have to learn how to win, period. In the regular season, you have to learn how to win. There's the preseason, there's the regular season, and then there's the playoffs. All three of those, I look at it as separate mini seasons inside of a three-part, which creates the whole of a football season. And it's different at each level. When you get to the playoffs, it takes a different level of concentration. It takes a different level of effort, a different level of motivation, a different level of execution. And if you've never been there, and if you don't know what it takes, either from a coaching or player's perspective or both, it makes it extremely difficult. I'm not saying you have to get lucky, but you got to get lucky at some point. Every team has to get lucky at some point during the season. But when it comes to the playoffs, I believe that the teams that do best in the playoffs are the teams that have been there before and the coaches who have been there before. And Kyle Shanahan's been there a bunch. He's been to the Super Bowl twice as a coach. And so I just believe he knows how to coach better in those types of games, in the playoff games. I believe the Niners have seen what it takes to get there, being in the Super Bowl in Miami and then making it to the NFC Championship last year. I think the Niners know what it takes and know how you have to dig down to a different part of who you are as a player to get to the Super Bowl. And I think the Niners have that. I can't say that. I can say that for the Eagles, but the Niners-Eagles showdown earlier this season, I looked at it as, okay, this is the one team that can match the Niners' physicality in the NFC. This is the one team that can beat the Niners because they've done it before. They have the confidence that they can do it. And the Niners just took all of that confidence and threw it right in the trash for the Eagles. It almost like the Eagles had to restart, and they haven't been the same since that game. The Niners beat them up and from a physicality standpoint and from an execution standpoint, and they left no doubt. So the Cowboys, maybe, but We saw
No,
what
you said
happened.
no. You said no. You said Cowboys no. Now you're saying
No,
maybe.
no,
Okay.
I'm just saying maybe, but we saw what happened last year in the divisional round. That wasn't very like that wasn't
Yeah.
convincing that if the Cowboys see him again, this is our chance.
This year
Uh,
will.
yeah, so I don't think I really do not think that there is a team in the NFC that can beat the 49ers in any playoff scenario.
And the Rams, you're saying they'll play this week, but it's Wentz
Yeah,
against Stafford this week, so that doesn't change
yeah,
anything.
yeah. I think that that's a very good combination, Matt Stafford and Sean McVay. Um, but I mean, they've both been there. They know what it takes, right? They have that pedigree that I was talking about, that playoff experience, that idea of this is what it's going to take to win this game. When all the chips are on the table, you're all in. I do think that that's probably the best combination. I just don't think, from a team perspective, from a personnel perspective, that they have enough talent right now to get them over the hill and actually beat the Niners in a playoff situation.
All right, now for the record, you are a hater
For
or
what? A
not?
hater of
You
what? A
taking the?
hater of what?
Are you picking the Ravens to win the Super Bowl right now? I can sense in you you're picking the Ravens to win the Super Bowl.
Um,
That's
it's
a yes.
tough.
All right,
It's tough, but yeah, yeah. If I was a betting man, I probably at this point, I probably would take the Ravens to beat the Niners in the Super Bowl, just based off of what happened in the first matchup. Do I believe if that happens, do I believe Brock Purdy is going to turn the ball over 4 times? Absolutely not. Do I believe the 49ers are going to execute at a much higher level? Absolutely. But you know the saying in sports that, especially in football, that it's hard to beat a team twice, or it's more
Mhm.
difficult to beat a team the second time. In recent years, for me personally, that hasn't I don't necessarily believe in that anymore. Um,
Never applied to the Jets.
no, it never applied to the Jets. What I'm saying is, when you've already beaten the team in the current season, going into the game, right? The second matchup,
Yeah,
regardless of what happens, you, in the back of your head, you have the confidence of, maybe in the front of your mind, you have the confidence of, we beat them once, we can beat them again. And there's never a game where, look, if I'm the Ravens, right? We're looking at the Niners tape. The Ravens made mistakes too. And so you're watching the film as a Ravens player and you're saying, wow, we made a ton of mistakes. We didn't play our best football, but we still won the game. That's a certain type of confidence that is very difficult for the team that lost to overcome in the second matchup, if that makes sense.
yeah.
There's more confidence in the team that won than there is in the team that lost in the first matchup in the same season.
All right, Shane. Thanks for jumping on YouTube.
Of course, it's nice here. It's nice. Invite me back sometime.
Okay.
I mean, it took you 2 years to invite me over for dinner, but after you invited me over for dinner, there was a more consistent effort to have Shane over for dinner. I'm a wonderful guest, people.